Good afternoon, all of you. Thanks so much for the kind words. Very difficult to come and present a very serious subject after such a light-hearted talk which we had before this. And the interesting part and the sad part, we could see a lot of people walk out. Itself tells us that we clearly need a lot of people who need to know about real estate, so that next time we have more than what we have right now, the number of people to be here, right? So I'm here to talk about real estate as a career opportunity, and in terms of the opportunity which presents to all of you, in terms of a sector, in terms of something which is stable, in terms of something which gives you growth. So all of you, are you aware with something called built environment? Is this an alien terminology, or is it something which you've heard it before? And I would want you guys to participate a little. So anything which comes to your mind, kindly say it. So you've heard of built environment before? Yeah, so what do you think it is? Okay, okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. So let me try and take this forward. So from the places we live in, our houses, to the places we work in, to the places we travel to the places we shop at, to the places we go for entertainment. Practically the entire world around us, everything which is built around us is built environment. Would I be wrong in that sense in saying that built environment surrounds us in every walk of our life? And surprisingly, we're not even aware of that. That's the problem. And that's the perception which this sector kind of suffers from. So before we move forward, let's technically define in terms of what actually built environment means. So built environment basically is divided into construction and real estate services. So very simple, product and services. So when I talk of construction, we have real estate asset classes, which is your residential, retail, commercial, institutional, industrial, hospitality, etc. Your infrastructure facilities such as your roads, bridges, ports, airports, etc. And all these services encompassing this would be the transaction services, would be part of the entire piece. So the entire gamut of product and services on the real estate side is called built environment. Very simply put, real estate, construction, infrastructure put together is what we call as built environment. Worldwide, this is the accepted terminology for this sector. Sounds better, feels better. So we should also start calling it built environment. At this stage, I like to mention something which is what perception does to all of us. I worked briefly in radio, and I was very excited, glamorous field, and very different from the other things which I've done in life. So when I would talk to people, tell them that I've joined radio, the first thoughts which would come, and these are, mind you, all very learned, very educated people. Are you a radio jockey? And 90% of these people think that radio only consists of being a radio jockey. So many times in life, we have perceptions which block our mind. We just know very little about something, form a perception, and then we really don't go beyond it. Why I'm giving you that example is very simple. Our sector, which is the built environment sector I'm talking of, somewhere suffers from a similar perception. As Vimy was mentioning earlier, real estate, you think of property dealer and the mind stops at that. So we don't even get into the details of what all this sector comprises of, what all does it offer, what is the size and scale of this sector, and that's exactly what we're going to talk today. In a way, it was an eye-opener for me. I've spent 14 years of my life not in this sector, mind you. I'm as new to this sector as I would want so many of you wanting to get into this sector to be. But I'm very passionate. In this little while I've seen there is so much this has to present, and that passion hopefully will come across and have a few people interested in this sector post this. So according to World Bank, as much as 70% of our global wealth relates to land, property and construction. Imagine how important this sector is to the global economy. And statistics don't lie. Just, I would want your attention on this slide, and this would be a clear eye-opener in terms of what this sector has to present. Just go through these numbers for 5 seconds and then I'll talk. So this sector contributes to 17.5% to India's GDP. Now can you tell me, this is number 2 in GDP contribution. Which is the number 1 sector in GDP contribution in India right now? Any of you? Agriculture. So if real estate is the number 2 sector in GDP contribution, that is something. As we speak, 50 million people are currently employed in this sector. 1 million 10 lakh. So you can imagine the amount of people who are employed. Of course, this is across all categories. So right from your workers to professionals, as in core professional, non-core professional, the entire gamut. But still 50 million people are employed. Just to tell you of the focus the government has on this sector, $1 trillion is the kind of investment which the government had in the current 5-year plan, which is from 2012 to 2017. Any of you, what is the current Indian population? I'm sure most of you would know this. Exactly. So 1.2 billion is what the current Indian population is. If we were to extrapolate this figure slightly and take it to 2020, what we're talking of is by 2020, the expected Indian population is about 1.4 billion. And out of that, 500 million is expected to be urban population, which is about 36%. You know, these days we're all talking about urbanization. So urbanization, what does it mean? Clearly infrastructure and infrastructure growth, right? So if you're talking 2030, this 36% is likely to go to about 40%. So the point I'm trying to make is, in the next 15 to 20 years, almost 50% of our population is going to be urban population. Now India may be among the last few countries to have actually started urbanizing, but now that it's doing it, you know, I expect this to maybe, maybe faster than this actually. So as fast as we are urbanizing, clearly the infrastructure needs are increasing, and clearly as the infrastructure needs are increasing, the employment opportunities are increasing. So if we were to take 2020 as a reference, if 1.4 is our population by then, 36% is our urban population, then the jobs expected in this sector are 97 million jobs. You know, 5 minutes back we spoke of a figure saying currently we have about 50 million people who are employed. So we are also, as it is talking 2013 right now, right? So 7 years, 2013, 7 years this 50 million moves to 97. So it doubles up in 7 years. Now that's the size and scale, my friend, which this sector presents to all of you. So these are numbers which are huge, which are eye-openers, at least for me, and I like to believe for all of you right here. So if we were to move a little more on the core professional side, the demand-supply situation is even more worrying. Against 5 million core professionals, which is the annual requirement currently in the country, out of all the courses and the institutes put together, there are only about 1 million core professionals who are passing out. When I say core professionals, I mean the architects, the planners, and the engineers, civil mechanical engineers. So you can imagine an 80% shortage. No other sector in the country right now would have such an acute shortage, and that too in the core professional category. Now one way to look at it is shortage. The other way, and the very important way to look at it, is this is the time to get into this sector, because if the demand supply skew is like the way it is right now, the best time to enter this sector, right? So this slide clearly tells us that, you know, this sector, one, has a demand supply situation which is very peculiar. Two, with the fact that we are moving from villages to cities with the urbanization happening, clearly a sector which for the next 30, 50 years, probably more than that, I see it as one of the most stable sectors and probably one of the key drivers of Indian economy. As we move on, and very, very specialized kind of professionals are emerging in this sector, like your valuers, quantity surveyors, and facility managers. So if we were to just break this sector into, as I said, 50 million people are employed. You have the non-core professionals, where you talk of the management people. You have the financial people. You'll have the legal people, and you'll have all other support people. The core professional category would be your engineers, specifically mechanical, civil, architects, and planners. And then you would have the workers, which is your skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled. So this is the entire universe of all the people currently employed. So just to share with you in terms of the amazing projects which clearly tell you in terms of the kind of work and the kind of people built environment has, and in terms of the wonders built environment has created. So this is Burj Khalifa, one of the clear modern day wonders. So 162 floors, again one marvel of built environment. our own metro, DMRC. So IGI Airport, Terminal 3, clearly, we've just taken 2-3 examples, but very clear examples of standout marvels of built environment in the current modern day era. So from designing and construction, housing to building, repairing bridges, airports and roads, the industry has vast employment opportunities to choose from. So just to share with you currently, as I said, this sector is suffering majorly from the perception issues and maybe currently is not in the top 5 most preferred career options. But we'll just share you in terms of the category of organizations which can look at hiring you or which you could be part of tomorrow. And you'll be surprised to know it's a whole big universe which you can be a part of. So right from your international property consulting firms, to your construction infrastructure companies, to professional services, to the development firms. And here at development firms, I'll again pause because a lot of people I talk to, they think real estate is only developers and nothing beyond developers. So developers is just one part of real estate, though of course a major part of real estate or the built environment sector, but just one part of it. Then you have the banks and financial services, you have the private equity funds, you have the valuation firms, facility management firms. It's an entire big universe you can be a part of. And again, you need to clear that perception. The mind needs to get into details of what this sector can present to you. So I'll just put in and name a few organizations within these categories just to give you a more clear picture in terms of the organizations which are present. So as I said, real estate development firms, I'm sure this piece most of you know of. So right from the DLFs of the world, Unitex, Ansal, Ashiana, ATS Infrastructure, Hiranandani Constructions, etc. Moving to the construction infrastructure companies, Larsen Toubro, Punj Lloyd, JP, Lanco, Gammon India, Shapoorji Pallonji, etc. Professional services firms, Jones Lang LaSalle, CBRE, Cushman Wakefield, Knight Frank, Colliers, DTZ. Consulting construction companies like your Langdon and Sir, Curry and Brown, Turner and Townsend, Parsons Brinckerhoff, WS Atkins, etc. Banks and financial services, again, this you will be more familiar with. So JP Morgan, ICICI Prudential, ICICI Venture Fund, Birla Sun Life, HDFC Asset, etc. Real estate finance, ICICI Home Finance, PNB Housing, Reliance Home Finance, Deutsche Postbank Home Finance. And trust me, these organizations when I talk of, these are the clear who's who in their respective categories, right? So these are clearly in terms of what you could look at, very close to maybe a banking financial services as a sector in terms of the kind of opportunities it presents. At this stage, also like to mention, because of the perception issue, we don't see too many ladies being a part of this sector. Why not? We were to talk of banking financial services, even insurance today. All major jobs, the ladies are there in today. And if we've seen the category of organization, I don't think even there is one category where I see women not being fit for it. So I clearly see this as something where good people will have to come forward, change this perception, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So, so the kind of different career opportunities, right now we spoken about the category of organizations and a few of the organizations which fall into that category. Now we'll just kind of go through very fast in terms of what are the various career opportunities which you could look at within these organizations or within these categories of organizations. So you could look at investment management, you could look at investment banking, you could look at corporate real estate and infrastructure, you could look at valuation, appraisal, credit management, construction project management, you could look at leasing and sales management, you could look at development and construction, you could look at building control management, you could look at asset management, you could look at project management. I'll just briefly take you through in terms of what all does this talk of. So real estate investment managers basically analyze real estate markets and work out optimal scenarios for development and investment. If we were to move into the investment banking side, so we have specific groups which are dedicated to real estate, particularly the repackaging of mortgages into residential, commercial, mortgage-backed securities. So if you have an interest in both real estate and investment banking, you can choose both of them at one go. And just to share, in terms of the category of organizations, if you are getting into investment banking, in terms of the categories which I shared with you, which would be the ones which are relevant and which could look at hiring you, would be banks, financial services, would be private equity funds, would be the international property consulting firms. Asset management, again one of the very popular career choices these days. So these are managers who establish business plans and budgets for the project and monitor revenue, costs, developer schedules and quality of construction. Asset managers also work with the developer to reforecast plan based on early warning signs of problems. Now the firms which could be looking at, or the category of organizations here, development firms, professional services, international property consulting firms. Valuation, appraisal or credit management. So these are, valuers provide unbiased estimates of a property's value and quality. Valuation professionals usually work in the credit departments of banks and housing financial institutions and take credit decisions on whether to extend credit to a borrower and the maximum amount they should be extending to a borrower. Now valuation professionals also act as independent economists to determine the value of land property portfolios for mortgage, taxation, probate and other collateral purposes. And again, the category of organizations who you could look at in this is the valuation firms, banks and financial services, international property consulting firms and the development firms. Advisory and consulting, again a very popular career choice these days. Institutional investors are purchasing real estate more and more. So, but real estate is not like a stock of bond you can buy and put in a vault. Real estate advisors help investors care for property and more importantly select property in the first place by suggesting areas and property types that are likely to experience price appreciation in the future. So these are people who are good with statistics and excel at client contact to do well in their jobs. So again, the organizations you can look at in this category are the valuation firms and the international property consulting firms. Property management. So leading real estate owners require professional property managers. So managers are responsible for negotiating leases, ensuring that tenants are satisfied and that rent is paid and that rents reflect market conditions. So the organizations you could look at would be the facility management firms and the international property consulting firms. By the way, the career of a property manager requires good interpersonal and analytical skills and a fair amount of negotiating prowess. So people who believe they had that kind of skill set can look at this as a career opportunity. Corporate real estate and facilities management, I think these days amongst the most popular career options in terms of even the highest paid jobs currently. So corporate real estate professionals manage the portfolios of property held by their organization, are responsible for long range planning of property strategies, the acquisition of new properties for branch offices or facilities, and the administration of new and existing buildings and facilities such as residential complexes, shopping centers, offices, universities, industrial, health, and transport facilities. Again, the kind of organizations you can look at are facility management firms, international property consulting firms, large global corporates, and retail chains. Leasing and sales management. So these people specialize in representing landlords or tenants in the transaction of commercial real estate properties for leasing purpose. Now they may also specialize in representing buyers and sellers in the sale of commercial real estate properties. One could even end up specializing in investment property transactions. So again, the category of organizations you can look at in this are the IPCs, the international property consulting firms, and the big brokerage firms. Development and construction. So, are you willing to work hard and take risks to develop new properties? Well, you can enter this business working for another developer, moving up to construction manager, or you can strike out on your own, basically starting on your own also, starting with smaller transactions. So work involves managing labor, establishing time estimates, getting appropriate equipment operators and construction crews. And the kind of organizations you would look at under this category would be the development firms and the construction and infrastructure contractors. Construction project management. These are people who are responsible for managing and controlling all construction operations of construction projects. They start from the planning and design stage and ensure that the construction projects are completed on time and within the budgets, meeting quality standards and safety requirements. They have to coordinate a lot of different professions which involve a significant amount of communicating and organizing. And again, the organizations you can look at amongst this is development firms, construction and infrastructure contractors, and professional services. Construction management, these are people who are site managers who run building sites, liaise with architects, planners, engineers, surveyors, trade people, suppliers to ensure that projects are completed safely on time and within the budgets. They can often be described as site managers, as their role is to run a construction site. They're different to project managers who coordinate all the aspects of a basically overall project, whereas these people are responsible for coordinating the building of the project. Again, the category of organizations: development firms, construction infrastructure contractors, and professional services. Construction economics and management. So these are people popularly known as quantity surveyors. These people estimate and monitor construction costs, ensuring that the project is within the budget, preparing tax depreciation schedules, estimating replacement costs for insurance, mediation and arbitration. They also advise on development feasibility, procurement routes, contractual management, and manage and advise on all costs of a construction project. They are considered to be the accountants of this sector, enjoying highest levels of responsibility, and not mentioned salaries also. So the organizations you could look at here: development firms, construction contractors, and professional services. Building control management. These are managers who are responsible for making sure buildings are safe, energy efficient, and suitable for living. So they provide professional advice on design, maintenance, repair, and refurbishment of buildings. It may also include working with buildings of architectural or historical importance. Now again, the organizations: development firms, construction infrastructure companies, professional services. So, I mean, these are the wide array of kind of opportunities you could look at. So we covered in terms of the category of organizations you could look at, in terms of the organizations which are there in those categories. Now we've also covered the various roles and responsibilities which you could look at. So why do we say it is a recipe for money, success, and fame? Well, you could see a few names here, and these are people, mind you, the who's who in this sector. You know, someone like Mr. Anuj Puri, who for the last 10 years plus has been leading organizations. I mean, why go far? I talk of Mr. Sachin Sandhir, our managing director here. He's been leading organizations for the last 9 years. No, the point I'm trying to make here is, these are people who entered into this sector maybe 12 years back, 13 years back, at the time where very few people were part of this sector. Now, that's what I call a first mover advantage. Now, I come from banking, financial services. I've also done a little bit of media, healthcare. You know, a lot of my friends into FMCG also. And mind you, these are sectors, again, with all due respect to all these sectors, I mean, these are plateaued to a certain point. And if I have to look at, very selfishly speaking, rising in a career path, I mean, vice president and above, not before a 38, 40, and so on and so forth. Most of the cases, I'm sure there are aberrations and exceptions, but by and large. So, here is a sector where you still, because it is nascent in India, still because it is getting corporatized now only, because professionals are coming into this sector now only. So in that sense, still a first mover advantage, still a baby in terms of a sector, in terms of the time span this sector has been there for. So people who move in right now take advantage of the demand supply situation, move up the growth ladder really, really fast. And these are few of the examples of people who've really, really grown in this sector. So some more examples, and I'll not get into details, but you can see from the organizations they represent, these are clearly the who's who of the industry. So, very clearly, not complicating the entire piece, till the time the Indian urbanization happens. Now, these days we talk, it's very in to talk about recession, slowdown, and the problems, this and that, this sector being right, this sector being bad. But very clear, simple logic if one has to apply, the urbanization of India is happening and happening at a pace which now would not stop. And if this keeps happening, the urbanization clearly is directly proportional to the infrastructure needs, which is directly proportional to the number of people required, which is directly proportional to the employment opportunities. And it's a very, very, very underlined safe space to be in, my friend. And I would advise a lot of you who want to look at long-term career, stable career, please choose real estate, construction, infrastructure, or as we defined earlier, which sounds much better, built environment as your career choice. Thank you so much for being such a nice and kind audience. Thank you so much. So, I would invite any questions from your side. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know one, if he wants to be a construction project manager, what is it like the vital role? He has to be a MBA or anything, or he can just get into it by the graduation course?
What are you doing currently? I mean,
I am with Earth Infrastructure. I'm
okay.
If you know Collective Growth.
Okay.
I've just joined it like a month back. I was working with ProGuard Securities as a...
And within Earth, in terms of what is the kind of role you're doing?
Over there we have a team management. We make teams, we sell off the projects. We are into the selling of projects.
So you're on the marketing and the business development side, right? So what I would, so you can please have a seat. So what I would say is, one, in terms of eligibility, anyone can get into construction project management, so you're very well eligible to get into it. And for the fact that you have relevant industry experience, you can definitely get into it. But it's a more technical piece, right? So if you're bent of mind, if you're a people's person, as you say, and the current roles you're doing, I think getting into a slightly more real estate and infrastructure kind of a thing, which is dealing more with marketing, is something which one can look at. But again, in terms of eligibility, if you want to be a specialist and you have that flair, I mean, you don't need any other qualification to actually get into it. Yeah. Okay.
That's what made me think about it, that I need to be an MBA, then only I can be a project manager in it.
No, nothing like that. I mean, I don't think so. Of course, if you are an MBA, it's an added qualification, it helps you. But if that is compensated by relevant experience, I'm sure that's also good enough. Not a problem at all.
So what platforms can I get to get into it?
So you could look at within your organization. So I'm sure if there is something they do on the same, or you could look at organizations like that, and we could help you out on that. So we can take this offline after this, and we could, we could guide you on this. Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, for a civil engineering graduate, sir, what will be the better option, sir, to start with a real estate or to get in a construction industry?
So, please have a seat. Very, very, as a doctor is to the medical fraternity, the core professionals in this sector are the civil engineers and the architects, right? So, clearly, I mean, not a forum, we're talking of this as a career opportunity, but we are currently in the process of launching specialized programs in this sector, probably the only ones to be able to do so. So there is a construction project management MBA program which we've launched. This is specifically designed for civil engineers and architects. So it's like a hand-in-glove fitment. So it's an industry-backed program started by the industry as per the industry specifications. And we're talking of something where the industry says this is my requirement. We get in an individual, obviously with a civil background, ready an individual and give it back to the industry. So post this session, we can have a word on it, and I can share the details with you. So I think that program should be a very relevant kind of a program for you. Right? So do we have time for now other questions, or shall we? I'll also share. There is RICS has launched a School of Built Environment. There's a stall number 26 which we have. So these are specialized courses in real estate and infrastructure we are talking of. So anyone post this on a personal level wants to talk something on it, we are at stall number 26 and the team is there. So you can come there and we can talk about it, right? So thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure talking about this sector, and I hope some of you, after learning and after hearing about this sector today, will come forward and be a part of this sector. Thank you so much.